A very good morning to you all. Welcome to Sunrise Daily today. I'm Chamberlain Uso.
It's a wet, cool Friday morning in Lagos, the commercial capital. I'm Ayo Makinde. Good morning and welcome.
Have you? Have you taken over from Kayode in that respect? Well, I don't know. Him constantly echoing commercial capital. Welcome to the nation's capital. It's also very wet here in Abuja. Good morning, I'm Maupe Ogun Yusuf.
I was going to say, maybe I should just go leave Lagos or them and go somewhere. But now it's also wet in Abuja, wet in Lagos. So where can one go?
But one is commercial, one is political, so...
Well, it depends. It's
perspective.
It's about perspective, actually. Yeah. So it depends on how you see it. Commercial, political. Okay, well, yeah, you know, now that we're in this election, building up to elections, you expect a lot of calls to make the rounds. One of such happens to be the one coming through from Mr. Femi Falana, a senior advocate of Nigeria, asking the courts to stop imposing candidates on Nigerians. Wow. How do people approach that scenario? Because on the one hand, you think, well, as they always say, the courts only adjudicate on matters that are brought before them. And if they are before them, they have to take a decision on those things. So politicians take these cases to the courts, and so it happens. So unless, of course, it's asking that, well, maybe the judgments could have come out a lot better than it is. But then, is there any judgment that comes out at any point in time that everyone can ever be happy with? So it's just something you always wonder. Now, even though he's made the call, what can the solutions be in the light of the processes and the procedures that they've got to subject themselves to? Who knows?
You know, Chamberlain, I think it was in the wake of the 2019 elections, and maybe about two, three election cycles before the last one, including the last one. No. Go back as far as 2007 elections, where the president who was elected at the time, late Yaradua, said he agrees that the process that brought him in, you know, was fraudulent and needed some adjustments. I think all of these election woes, if I can use the term in a loose sense, dates back that far. Now, every election year we've had issues that led to the fact that some people at some point, maybe the 2015 or 2019 elections, said, you know what, we need to sit down and have conversations around the Electoral Offences Commission. Now, if that was standing, you know, my point here is...
The Offences Commission?
Yes, Electoral Offences Commission.
It's been, okay, well...
The National Assembly is still talking about it. Now, I think that is where the root of Mr. Falana's conversation is from, but in the light of the new 2022 Electoral Act. Now, the problem here that I'm wondering is, okay, exactly where do we want to begin from? Because we can't just nitpick on issues around our elections. We have to look at it holistically. Now, we have had cases where, okay, there have been judgment, there's been an election, there's been contestations.
There will always be.
And then the courts, the parties will go to court, and then the court will make a pronouncement, and that will become what will be standing. That's where he's speaking from. So in order to achieve the thing that Mr. Falana is saying, exactly what do we need to do? What is wrong with our electoral process?
Now, he says the scenario is forced on the courts by INEC. And some of the words he uses is that INEC neglects their duties. And he also says there's impunity by some members of the executive and the corrupt activities of politicians. And he went on to say, look, let me even quote, he says, in order to respect the democratic wishes of the electorate, there has to be a new electoral jurisprudence. Since the people are the greatest defenders of democracy, INEC must be made to ensure the votes of the electorate count. And then he says INEC should own up to their constitutional responsibility, stop pushing their powers to the courts. Remember when you go to elections or you ask INEC officials, so when an offense is committed, at the point where elections are happening, people are voting, who points it out? Who is the arresting officer? Who is the prosecuting officer? So all of those questions, they had to be a lot more definitive about it. Remember, Mr. Koya at the point said, look, in some scenarios, since the officers who are there in close proximity to the ballot boxes are not allowed to bear arms, not to invite chaos or disrupt the process, they simply ask anyone who may have been guilty of identity theft to walk away. And if he walks away, it may be literal, that he walks away and nothing happens. So, but now that they're talking about this Electoral Offences Commission and Tribunal in the National Assembly, will it cure this melee?
I think it will be a good start, in my opinion. Without holding brief for INEC, please, let's just come out with areas in which INEC has broken the law or walked out of its law. There have been conversations, I think even in the last, following the last, general elections, where we were looking at, okay, so is INEC overburdened? Are the responsibilities of INEC so much that INEC cannot handle them all?
I thought the chairman, or several chairmen have suggested that when he says, we need to have a conversation about electoral management in the country.
That's exactly the point that I was coming to. And that, I think, is where the root of what Mr. Falana is talking about is. Look, if there are lacunas if there are some lacuna in the whole process, at the end of the day, people have to go to court. For instance, one of the conversations that we're going to be having today, why is it necessary? Mr. Falana also mentioned the responsibility of politicians, not the political parties. Perhaps it all starts from there. Because if the parties were monitoring and administering their parties well enough, would there be a need for such contestations as have to be taken to courts? To the point that it is now the court that is going to now declare who won, when the parties, the result sheets and everything have said one thing or the other. So it goes back to our responsibilities as people. I don't know. Maybe I'm just speaking as a man. Markwe?
Well, it has to be... Chimele, why are you looking like that? It has to be where you're approaching it from. If this is about electoral offenses, there'll be... Yes, maybe it will be something that an electoral offences tribunal might be able to cure. But if the defect is coming from how the candidates themselves were fielded, how do you cure that? In two very prominent situations, the situation we saw in Imo and the situation we saw in Bayelsa, I think those were two very different circumstances that produced two very different outcomes, different from what INEC had announced or who INEC had announced as the winner of those particular elections. So when Mr. Femi Falana speaks, you have to ask, in terms of the solution which he's coming up with, will it work? Will it be a one-size-fits-all? Will it cure all in all situations? If, for instance, there were punitive measures put in place for whatever reason, maybe non-declaration of results, tampering of results, etc. What exactly will be in place for where maybe somebody's certificate is not exactly in tandem or it's not exactly regular, or people are not convinced that the certificate wasn't forged, etc. There are lots of questions, to be very honest. I think that, the courts will be in the business of elections for quite a while, unless, there is another regulation, there's a law saying that you cannot go to court. And that could result in something which we all do not want at the end of the day. Because if people cannot get their grievances addressed peaceably, the chances that it might become violent could be the order of the day. And for a long time now, I think that violence during our elections or around the elections themselves have somewhat tapered down, somewhat, because 2023 will be another test. Sometimes it goes up, sometimes it comes down. And in some states, they're developing a reputation somewhat for some expectation of violence around the polls. The security agencies are doing what they can. And in some instances, people are not even satisfied. They don't even want the security agencies there as well because they fear that they could be compromised. So these are all manner of fears. We'll have to examine just what our electoral experience has been. where we think the courts can intervene, maybe develop areas where we think this is none of the court's business. Politicians should be able to sort themselves out, and also find where maybe an electoral panel might be more suited to dealing with some of these issues that could arise as a result of our electoral business. Gentlemen.
Well, yeah. So the question then, additionally, will be, can you and I, we the people, we regular people, get justice from the courts or access it very easily? I know they say politics is expensive. What about justice if it's equally expensive? So wherein lies the hope of the common man? Anyways, you can weigh in on that if you will. Let's take a moment. We'll come back with you with the papers. Welcome back. Let's run you through some of the dailies now. We'll start with Daily Independence today, and the lead story focuses on what Labour plans to do concerning the strike. Look at that. NLC mobilizes for national protest over ASU FG impasse. I guess all is fair in fight for the people. So that's what informs that big lead there. And so you also see CBN rates hike may not rein in inflation. Ascribed to Fitch. We've been trying to rein that inflation for decades now to a single digit, but now it's all hope lost. You tell us. That is Daily Independence today.
Well, Nigerian News Direct is speaking in the same tone as the Daily Independent this morning. Headline of the Nigerian News Direct says, fuel scarcity, ASU strike, NLC threatens nationwide protests. You know, it's elections next year, right? Mm-hmm. Remember in 2014, the ruling party did the same thing, protested some of the things that were happening. And then, of course, sympathies went in a particular way. Is that a strategy as well? I don't know. But that's what you have on page 23 of the Nigerian News Direct this morning, and several other stories, you know, that will pique your interest. 200 illegal refineries operating across Nigeria. That story is on page 16, ascribed to the GMD of the NNPC. The details are on the inside pages. Russia-Ukraine war, FG to strengthen increased cooperation in oil, gas, others with Portugal. Find the details on the inside pages. As the Nigerian News Direct this morning. Markwe.
And let's take a look at what Leadership Friday has for you this morning. Look at the lead headline. Vested interest in APC, delaying emergence of Tinubu's running mate. So page 4 is where you'll see details there emerging. Regions in final push for VP slot. Northwest governors, ministers, leaders meet in Kaduna to engage presidential candidate. Tinubu support group insists on Lalong. Youth groups settle for Yakubu Pam. So you'll find all of those details right there on the front page, focusing heavily on politics. But look at this story, where you see those colors right there on your screen, those bars with colors, and it has a story. Religious beliefs others, hindering acceptance of family planning. Penetration in Nigeria, only 17%. So just in case you're wondering what this is about, I think it's a Leadership Friday special report talking about why it will be that, you know, there is a low acceptance of modern family planning methods in Nigeria, especially when you look at the projection that our population is set to double by the year 2050. What are we doing about it? So for those who are interested, for women, for men, for family people, for policy makers, this certainly should be of interest to them to know precisely. And even religious leaders who perhaps this might be a concern for, they might need to pick up a copy of Leadership Today and Leadership Friday and see what it is that they can do about it. They have a number of other stories for you. Alleged organ harvesting. UK court adjourns Ekweremadu's trial to July the 7th. 13 security operatives, 6 locals killed, 4 Chinese abducted. in Niger. So I find that in a number of other stories. But you need to read the back page. I have read the back page. I read it before today. Don't ask me where I got it from. But conversation with Azu is very interesting this morning, and I don't know whether women would object to it. The title is "She Can Keep Me for 1 month." You know, men and football. The picture should tell you a lot about that. I'm sure that Chamberlain would like to read it now that I mentioned football. But until the EPL season starts, let us see what happens. Let's leave it there for Leadership Friday.
It only reminds me of yesterday's Mr. and Mrs. Mr. said, I will be together for 30 years. I'm 60 now. I married you at 30. And Mrs. says, feel free to keep the rest.
I'm also interested in the family planning story, don't forget. So,
and that's actually quite instructive.
Yeah.
I think it was 2 years ago that former President Obasanjo said, look, we need to do something with our population. It is not a liability, it is an asset. Question of how we galvanize that population. We can't do it from the center. We can't even do it from the state levels. We need to go down. That research is actually quite interesting. If you can pick up a copy of the paper today to look, because it has some information, even right there on the front page. It's very, very interesting and intriguing information.
And you know, we have to face it. We have to address the elephant in the room. We cannot keep, hiding behind religion and say we cannot broach certain topics. Religion doesn't make us lose our senses or forget our brains somewhere. Yeah. This stares us in the face. Honestly. Why we need to plan with what we have. Because if we don't plan, we don't expect these things to just fall on our laps. Even other countries who are steep in religion. We always talk about Israel and Saudi Arabia. Look at how they focus and how the policies. Dubai, many of them, the leaders go to. They go to these countries, they see what's obtainable. Why can't it happen here?
If we say it calls to have a multiplicity of religions, how about India?
So what excuse do we have? Well, we just have nothing.
We don't have it.
Well, take a look at The Guardian next. They're talking about why illegal harvesting of organs thrives in Nigeria. That's a big lead on the front page of The Guardian here today. So I think it might have been necessitated by the current developments in UK at the moment with the former Deputy President of the Senate, aka Kwere Madu. If you look at some of the writers there, it also points to issues raised here, the first of which is doctors blame lack of regulation, enforcement of medical ethics, poverty. I think some remind us about the National Health Act. I think they say Section 51 and 52 are really weak. It doesn't really focus on this, and we need to strengthen those laws. And that's why laws are there for amendments, for us to improve. Laws are made for us, not us for the law, and all of those things. That's where the lawmakers need to actually focus and do the right things. That's The Guardian today.
Now look at the Vanguard newspaper. The front page is talking about subsidy. Experts rage as deficit hits 580 billion naira in February. That's the lead story on the front page of the Vanguard newspaper this morning as oil revenue slumps by 36%. Okay, we don't have that paper yet. It will come up later. Let's take a look then, while we wait for that one, at the Daily Times newspaper. What do we have on the front page of Daily Times newspaper 2023? Again, Buhari reiterates commitment to peaceful, credible polls. That's what you have there. It says West Africa must resume the path of proper democratization. That's what you have right there. Right under the nameplate, LG autonomy. Atiku, Tinubu, Obi must declare position or what? Find the details on the front page. Continues on page 3. It's ascribed to NOLGE. That's the National Union of Local Government Employees. The details continue on page 3. Troops recover 3,810,000 liters of stolen crude oil, 3,074,000 liters of gas.
Who is the kingpin behind it? They will only arrest the foot soldiers, then slap on the wrist. Then the business continues.
That's the Daily Times newspaper this morning.
I'm trying to see if I can get a copy of New Telegraph. I hope it will come up when we put this one up. Look at this. Niger, Plateau, Enugu, rampaging terror groups kill 37 soldiers, 9 policemen, 6 civilians, abduct 4 Chinese miners, several others. Tension in Ondo over rumor of terror attack. We've deployed our men, that's according to the police command. But this certainly is something that we should be disturbed about. 37 soldiers, 9 policemen, 6 civilians. I'm sure they're doing like an aggregate of the number of people, security personnel we've lost in these 3 states. Maybe that happened within 24, 48 hours. You might want to read details on pages 3, 4, 30, and 31. But something that we all should check out this morning. Look at this, 2023 intrigues as Wike set to broker Obi Kwankwanso ticket on LP. How PDP crisis degenerated by autumn. Appropriate actions have been taken. That's according to the presidential candidate, Atiku. I'll retire from politics if I leave PDP. That's from McCarthy. Asks ex-VP to engage Rivers governor. So a lot more pointing to all not being well within the PDP. And they certainly have a scoop. Intrigues as Wike said to broker Obi Kwankwanso ticket on Labour Party. You have a number of other stories at the bottom, at the side here. High cost of diesel choking our facility, as according to the managing director of FMC Abeokuta. And just in case you're wondering what's going on with our monetary policy, look at this. Fitch, Nigeria's unorthodox monetary policy approach won't stem inflation. Well, our methods are unorthodox. Oh, well, unorthodox medicine works. So let us see what will happen with our monetary policy, if that is how it's been termed. You have a number of other stories. It's a really rich front page for you this morning. Let's leave it there for New Telegraph.
Next, they are talking about subsidy, and it says, experts rage. And you just sometimes wonder, oof. Okay, well, experts rage as deficit hits 580 billion naira in February. Yeah. As oil revenue slumps by 36%, recurrent dominates FG's expenditure with 80%. High crude oil price now a curse, experts. And we keep going over this, and you just wonder, do we just go over it for the sake of it? And then what is being done? What specific steps are being taken to ensure revenue slumping? Of course, that affects the federation allocation, which equally, I think they say slump by 30%. So how many investments is coming to that sector over time? I think it's something that needs to be focused on. But then, beneath that lead story, terrorists kill 20 military personnel. Wow. 7 mobile policemen, others in Niger. This happened a couple of days ago, and the governor spoke about it yesterday. So they had gone to some expatriates were kidnapped in a mining site in Shiroro in Niger. So it's a really, really disturbing scenario that we're going through in some of these parts of the country at the moment. 20 military personnel. There were casualties on both ends, though.
Yeah, but one of these days, I think in the course of we're talking about insecurity and all, and I think, were the ones talking about the need for us to spare significant thoughts in our heads for the people who fight for us on a daily basis. Mm-hmm. These guys went to work, like everyone goes to work, and they didn't come back.
Yeah.
And it's just unimaginable what their families and friends and colleagues and relatives are going through right now, you know, just because they choose to defend the country. So the questions that part of the questions that we've been asking is what are the heads of the security agencies doing to ensure that these men and women who go out on a daily basis for us are well protected, welfare taken care of, terms of reference, conditions of service, pleasing enough for them to do whatever it is that they need to do.
Because whatever it is they're doing, it doesn't seem to be enough. And perception for a lot of people is their reality.
Yeah,
if they perceive that you're not doing anything or you're not doing enough, that is what they run with, no matter what it is you're doing. So whatever they're doing, they need to find a way to better communicate it. And above all else, it had to be seen that some of these people are routed and then having their day in court for the country to see, above all else. Well, on to Mr. and Mrs. The Johnsons just celebrated their 25th wedding anniversary. Mrs. seems to be raging about this. The woman said she never lacked cash. What am I enjoying in this relationship? Mrs. just seems to be, you know, going at Mr. Well, Mr. somewhere, I think you already had this figured out. Guess what? His answer is uninterrupted power. I rest my case.
I don't know what Mrs.
At least he didn't blame terrorists for not giving him uninterrupted power supply.
But where's the uninterrupted power coming from? What kind of power is he talking about? We need to probe, mister. Yes, I agree with Mark this morning. Well, Daily Trust is speaking in the same light of the last story you took on the front page. Bandits kill 22 soldiers, 7 cops, many civilians in 2 states, Niger and Taraba. That's on the front page of the Daily Trust newspaper this morning. And it also says 8 soldiers missing, 4 Chinese abducted, troops were ambushed. That's ascribed to a security source. The details of that story you'll find on page 5.
We shouldn't look at those cases as though they are isolated.
No.
You know, there is a big picture of something going on. So if people look at it, or if we look at it from that big picture, maybe it may give us a proper perspective in terms of understanding what's happening, how to approach it. Because, of course, the authorities have huge information coming through to them about all of what is happening. But what is being done, who knows?
It's across 2 states. You talked something very, very significant you talked about the other time that we seem to be winking at, is that it happened around a mining site. And a good number of security consultants that we have hosted here always draw a parallel between some of the insecurity in some states and natural deposits, raw material deposits in the country. Who is paying attention? There is no local government active at the local government centers. And that is where these things are supposed to
Remember when the ONSA did read out some directives saying, I think FG as well, declaring a no-fly zone in Zamfara. Many couldn't connect the dots. They thought, what has a no-fly zone got to do with anything? Because the authorities left a lot of space and gaps. They didn't tell the people what had been going on, how people had been doing things there, taking advantage and then flying resources away from it. So these kind of things going on, you just wonder.
Let me just take one more story. Right under the graphics on the front page of the paper this morning, families of train attack victims to occupy government facilities in Abuja and Kaduna. Let's just keep that in the news. That's the Daily Trust.
And that ends it as well with a look at some of the dailies here today. We're back in a moment. Stay with us. All right, so among the matters lined up this morning, we'll start on that note. And our guests are in Abuja at the moment. Markwe?
Thank you, Chamberlain. We have 2 gentlemen with us to shed a little more light on what precisely transpired in Akwa Ibom State. Mr. Valentine Ofia is a legal practitioner. You're welcome to Sunrise Daily this morning. And we also have Mr. Solomon Johnny, who is the former publicity secretary of the APC in Akwa Ibom State. You're welcome to Sunrise Daily as well.
Thank you very much.
Well, pretty controversial circumstances have arisen in Akwa Ibom State. Well, it's happened in 1 or 2 states where there were questions of placeholders etc. But in Akwa Ibom State, it looks like the situation is even more peculiar, as we understand that the APC might not be fielding any candidates in the forthcoming election. What has led to this? I mean, some people say this has stemmed from the conduct of the party's congresses and the emergence of the party leadership, and as a result of the nullification of the party leadership, that something cannot stand on nothing, so to speak. The basis for which any other further election was going to be conducted was going to be null and void. Is that what happened in Akwa Ibom State?
The truth of the matter is that a man expects the natural consequences of his actions. I think what is happening to the APC in Akwa Ibom State is the natural result of setting aside the procedures of the Electoral Act and trying to set aside the outcome of the 16th October 2021 State Congress that the party conducted by Mr. Bangi Sharif and his team. The Congress produced Mr. Austin Ekanem as chairman, where he pooled 1,278 votes. And he was sworn in on 7th March 2022, shortly before the termination of the Mai Malaboni-led caretaker committee of the APC. The victory was set aside by a federal high court judgment that was delivered on 17th of April 2022, where the result was doctored to give Stephen Turekpo a victory at the Congress. And a stay of execution and notice of appeal was filed on 18th of April, and later on 7th of April, the Court of Appeal in Abuja granted an order that status quo should be maintained. And status quo is the state of affairs before a party gets to court. What led to the grievance? The grievance was that Mr. Stephen Turekpo claimed victory at the poll where it didn't actually happen. And so when the court said maintain status quo, the court was just like, do not destroy the rest. Let's hear and know whether you are right. So let the situation of things, which was that Mr. Austin Ekanem had already been sworn in, let that continue. That's status quo. But I think the main problem came when the Adamu-led NWC set aside the court order, breached the court order, and swore in Mr. Stephen Turekpo on shortly after the Court of Appeal judgment. And so we then had parallel exco in Akwa Ibom State. Now, when I said a person expects the natural consequence of his action, I mean to say that, you now had parallel exco running. And INEC had the prerequisite right to follow the court order, and it followed the court order that ordered status quo and decided to run with Mr. Austin Ekanem, while the party decided to run with Mr. Stephen Turekpo. So confusion set in. And as they were doing this, I think the party on its part was not reading the provisions of the 2022 Electoral Act that gives guidelines as to how candidates are to be nominated, how parties are to behave vis-a-vis the INEC guidelines. So what is happening in Akwa Ibom State today, which you rightly observe may lead to the party not feeling candidate in the 2023 election, is that the party, as they were struggling to set aside the October 16, 2021 result of the Congress, was also not looking at what were the provisions of the Electoral Act. They were not looking at the issues of the law, and that seems to be catching on the party at the moment.
Is that, do you agree, excuse me, with his own explanation? You're chuckling.
I have to.
Are there parts of that particular story? Because that's largely what has filtered into the public space.
That's a very long...
and that's what the public has. Do you have a different version?
Let me just say it in a polite manner. That's a very long, irrelevant narrative. You see, INEC has not disqualified anybody. And I can say that authoritatively because INEC has never held a meeting where such issues were discussed. And in fact, INEC has no powers to disqualify any candidate. You see, we have visited this issue several times, and the Supreme Court has pronounced on it several times. And in all those cases, the court made it clear that INEC as a body lacks the powers to disqualify any candidates of any political party. Once a political party submits the name of their candidate to INEC, INEC must accept it. What is going on today is that some people with vested interests have planted certain news in the media, confusing people. Now they talked about
confusing people?
Yes, they talked about.
Let me take you up on. You
Please
say people
do.
have planted certain news in the media,
Yes.
confusing people. You talk about how INEC doesn't have powers to
Definitely.
reject any candidate that the party gives it.
Yes.
But INEC is a monitor in congresses.
Exactly.
It monitors the primaries that political parties conduct. Is that monitoring role just for decoration?
They have observer status, and that is where it ends. If a political party today, I'll go as far as to say this, if a political party today submits the name of a monkey to INEC and say this monkey is our candidate, what INEC is bound to do is publish the name of that monkey and then let the public comment on it. They have no powers to disqualify anybody. Mr. Akpabio has not been disqualified by INEC. There's actually no news release from INEC where they have said that they disqualified it. What happened is that the REC, the Resident Electoral Commissioner of Akwa Ibom State, went to the press to express his personal views that he prefers that Akpabio be disqualified. And that has triggered all the crises you see in that state today. People demonstrating, people feeling that right now INEC is no longer being impartial. Yes.
I do not think that a REC will just get up one day.
Let me explain.
And decides to
that happens.
give his own personal.
But that
view.
is exactly what happened.
He has given a lineup of events which you have described as irrelevant. But in the eyes of the public, unless the APC is just holding these things to pull the wool over the people's eyes and really doesn't care about...
There's no crisis.
No, just a moment. Unless it doesn't
APC.
care about processes, someone would think that if that is truly what transpired, that there was a Congress and that whoever it was that emerged winner in that Congress is being challenged, or his victory is being challenged, not in the manner that we know, but that results are being forged and another person is being recognized, and it doesn't matter what has transpired, but whoever's name is submitted to INEC is the person who the commission should go with. There'll be many questions around that, you don't think?
Let's clarify the situation once again. First, there's what you call the Congress. That's a separate issue.
Indeed.
Then
And I'd like you to start from the Congress.
Yes, I'll come back to that. And then you talk about the party primaries, where they nominate candidates of the party. That is a separate issue. We shouldn't mix the two together.
Indeed.
The Congress has nothing to do with nomination of primaries.
So
then
can
I'll
we start
start
from
with
the
the
Congress?
Like in any organization, like politicians do, there's always a contest, people vying to fill offices. In Akwa Ibom State, people contested to fill the office of chairman of APC of Akwa Ibom State. There was a dispute. They took their disputes to court, the normal avenue, and the court determined the issue and gave its final judgment on the issue. And just before you started interviewing us, we saw a gentleman who was talking about INEC being partial and all that. And that gentleman today was the person who the court determined is the chairman of APC in Akwa Ibom State. Why are people still raising that controversy? It's been laid to rest. There are no factions in the state. There's a properly elected and recognized chairman of APC in the state. Then the next question now is, if that is the situation, why do we have all this noise and crisis up and down? It is simply this, that the rake of INEC the Resident Electoral Commission of INEC in that state has refused to recognize this court's judgment. Nothing more. And then you ask yourself, what powers does he have to do that? How can the court determine that somebody is the duly elected chairman of APC in that state, and the rec would say that he doesn't recognize such a person? It's unheard of.
Can I ask you, I mean, whether that's your reading of the situation as well? I mean...
I disagree with him when he says that INEC does not have the powers to disqualify candidates sent to them. Let's start from there.
No,
I think he has not, excuse me.
On the judgment.
I think he has not read Section 82(1) of the 2022 Electoral Act that guides political parties on how to do nomination, and Section 82(13) of the same act that empowers INEC to outrightly disqualify candidates sent to them by political parties if those candidates did not emerge in conformity with the provisions of the Electoral Act. That gives INEC the power to disqualify. Now, he talks about Congress. You cannot have a Congress where you don't have a party structure that organizes the Congress. And so the problem of APC starts from where somebody was elected and the video of that election covered by the press, independent press, circulated in the public is still very much available. People can watch when the Congress was conducted. The Stephen Turebo of a person was not even at the venue of the Congress. He had a parallel Congress elsewhere. But what is disturbing is the fact that he tries to doctor the result of the Congress conducted by Alhaji Bangi Sherif.
Has the court determined this issue?
Now they try to bring a confusion about the court judgment that was issued by the Federal High Court here in Abuja on 17th of March. And a stay of execution, notice of appeal. He is a lawyer. He knows that most times an appeal acts as a stay of execution. When a matter is decided at the court of first instance, we have the court of appeal. We have the Supreme Court. Until a matter gets to the Supreme Court, that matter is deemed not to have been given fair hearing. And the Austin Kandem-led EXCO, as at this time we are talking, are in the court of appeal. They are appealing the judgment of the Federal High Court. Now, it was even two appeals that were filed at the Court of Appeal. The Mai Malaboni-led EXCO of the party had filed an appeal rejecting the judgment of the Federal High Court because relevant parties that would have allowed my lord to hear the matter properly, give parties fair hearing, were not brought to the court. How do you want to sack an EXCO that had been inaugurated, but you don't bring them to court? You sued people that had nothing to do with the matter. For instance, Senator John James Akpan-Odoide, who was the national secretary of the party at the time, was sued. When Austin Kandem, that you contend is the one that had taken their victory, was not sued at the court. And so the party, in its wisdom, advised that that judgment was not executable and then filed an appeal. Senator John Odoide, on his part also, having been sued at the lower court, had also lodged an appeal. Now, when I said the problem with the APC is caused by the national chairman of the party, His Excellency Senator Adamu, led NWC, I mean to say that, for instance, when we had a national convention here in Abuja, the decisions that were taken, for instance, the congresses that were done by Mai Malaboni led caretaker committee was ratified. Well, when Senator Adamu came, he went over those decisions, took interest in Akwa Ibom matter for whatever reasons, brought it out of about 150 cases that were pending on issues of congresses. He singled out Akwa Ibom, withdrew the matter, the appeal, and so the EXCO was not given fair hearing, but not for the fact that Senator John Odoide had filed a separate appeal. Having been sued at the court of first instance, the APC EXCO that was elected by Alhaji Bangi Sherif committee would not have been given fair hearing. So the same date that the party, that the Adamu-led National Working Committee of the party withdrew from the appeal that was filed by Mai Malaboni, that same date the Court of Appeal sat on the appeal filed by Senator John James Akpan-Odoide. and heard the appeal. The party argued that having withdrawn from the appeal, that the court didn't have the right to hear the appeal. But the question was Senator John Odoyedere sued at the court of first instance? And the answer was yes. Now, if he had been sued, then he had the right to appeal. And it was on that appeal that a stay of execution kind of technically was given when the court ordered that status quo should be maintained. And status quo simply means that let parties maintain the position that they occupy. As at the day the court order was given, the question is, was Stephen Turekbo inaugurated as state chairman of the party? The answer is no. So why did the national chairman of the party not respect the order of court to maintain status quo? That is the beginning of the problem of the APC. Now, if we are to solve the problem of the APC, we just have to ask some people to obey the law. You see, the problem, he mentioned His Excellency Chief Godswill Akpabio. If you want to stampede His Excellency Chief Godswill Akpabio, put him in a position where he has to operate within the realm, within the ambit of the law. Put his supporters within the realm, the ambit of the law. You see the kind of crisis they are trying to cause in Akwa Ibom by trying to stampede INEC. INEC is an institution. INEC supervises political parties. INEC is like the headmaster. He cannot allow the pupils to go astray. Now, when INEC blows its whistle, every political party is supposed to listen. How do you set aside INEC supervision in an election? Let's see a situation where we go to the pool without INEC, which is what they are trying to do. And Mike Igini in Akwa Ibom State, INEC is not the problem of APC. APC is its own problem. It is self-inflicted crisis, and they have to face it.
Let me flip this conversation to my colleagues who might not have questions for you. Gentlemen.
Thank you, Malcolm. Well, let me begin with, Mr. Vitalist, who was speaking the other time. Maybe you want to, first of all, begin by responding to, what your colleague there said about whether or not, the powers are there. You are a lawyer, so you would know better. The Electoral Act is very clear on that. So what's your? We'll show you the law later because I'm almost certain that you've read it. But what's your take? Does INEC, according to Section 8413 of the Electoral Act, have powers to not recognize any candidate that didn't go through due process, according to them?
INEC has no powers to First of all, when you talk about due process, the APC went through due process. They held their primaries. Somebody was elected, won the primaries, and the name of that person was forwarded to INEC. So the simple question is this: does INEC have the power to reject the name of any candidate forwarded to them by a political party? And the answer is clear, is no. And this is not my personal opinion. This is the opinion of the Supreme Court that has been given in several judicial judgments. Several judgments. And for you to understand where we are coming from, I have to take you back to events that occurred in this same country. There was a time when the chief executive, then the president, had a problem with his vice president who, so to speak, went to another party. And executive powers were deployed to ensure that that vice president was disqualified as a candidate in a forthcoming election. And that matter went before the Supreme Court. And the Supreme Court said, look, it's very clear, to avoid a situation where we foist a dictatorship on the country, the umpire, the INEC, has been deprived of powers to reject names of candidates forwarded to them by political parties. And this is a provision of the law. It's there, the Electoral Act. What the law is that anybody at all, whether it's INEC, whether it's an aspirant, whether it's a citizen, whoever has any complaint whatsoever about the candidacy of anybody has to approach the courts. Go to the court, present your case, and if it has merit, let the court order the disqualification of that person. But you cannot have the umpire who is supposed to be neutral descend into the political arena to choose candidates for political parties. How can INEC draw up the list of candidates for parties?
Just 1 second, Mr. Ofia.
A party submits the name of Mr.
Just a second. Mark, I asked you a question the other time. Said, look, INEC observes the election. Is it for aesthetic purposes?
Yes.
Doesn't INEC also follow the election? Take notes, note the people who have been elected at that election, the Congress that they monitored. Doesn't INEC have the authority or right to do that as well?
Let me clarify this, because there seems to be a misunderstanding here. I've said it before, that on June 9, the APC held their primaries and elected Mr. Akpabio. He participated in that primary. Do you understand that? And his name was forwarded to INEC. Now, we are saying that INEC has no powers to reject his name, even if they took notes at that primary.
That Congress that you talked about, Mr. Ofia, did INEC monitor that particular Congress?
Do you know why you shouldn't ask that question? Whether INEC monitored the Congress or not, the matter was taken to court and a court gave its judgment. What we should ask ourselves is, what is the judgment of the court? We cannot substitute the judgment of the court with INEC opinion.
Now, you are a lawyer, Mr. Ofia.
Are you going to discard the judgment of that court?
Mr. Ofia, you are a lawyer. The law says INEC must monitor the Congress of a party. If INEC does not monitor the Congress of that party, is that Congress valid?
Of course. The law is very clear that INEC can choose not to... Hold on. That INEC can choose not to monitor the Congress. What is essential is that the party notified INEC.
What section of the law is that? What section of the law is it that says that INEC has the option of not attending the Congress?
I'm going to read it out to you right away. Because let's put to rest this controversy.
That's the new electoral.
This is the Electoral Act, yes, 2022, yes. So that let's put this controversy to bed. You know, because there is no way. What the law said. Let's go to 82.2. And I'm going to read it out. It says, the commission may, with or without prior notice to the political party, attend and observe any convention, congress, conference, or meeting, which is convened by a political party. Isn't that clear that they may, with or without any notice, attend? And it's up to them. What matters is that the party has given notice to INEC. And if INEC does not attend, that does not invalidate that. But in the APC primaries in which we are considering, INEC, notice was given to INEC, and INEC attended. What the controversy is here is that the rec of that state said that he would not recognize the candidate of the party. That's what the controversy is. It is not the Congress, it is not the primaries.
What about Section 84, 1 and 2?
What does it say?
Okay, look.
Section 84. What about Section 84, 1 and 2?
Yes.
And also Section 13. I mean, Section 84, subsection 13.
84 just simply says that the party can choose whether to conduct its primaries via indirect.
Let me read what I
direct.
have. Section 84, 1 and 2 says a political party seeking to nominate candidates for elections under this act shall hold primaries for aspirants to all elective positions, which shall be monitored by the commission.
Exactly.
Which shall be monitored by the commission. And I know that lawyers don't joke lightly. I don't joke at all with the word shall. But let me finish. The procedure for the nomination of candidates by political parties for the various elective positions shall be direct, indirect primaries, or consensus. And then 84.13 says, where a political party fails to comply with the provisions of this act in the conduct of its primaries, its candidates for election shall not be included in the election for the particular position in issue.
And now let's relate this law you have read out to the facts. The fact is this. On June 9, the APC held its primaries for the relevant senatorial district in question, Akwa Ibom Northwest. After conducting that primaries, I'll answer all your questions. The name of Mr. Akpabio was forwarded to the commission. Now, the REC, not the commission, they are two different things. The REC of Akwa Ibom said he would not recognize that nomination. That is what the problem is. The problem is not that the APC did not conduct primaries. They have complied with the law. The problem is that the REC said that he will not recognize that. And then I'll take you to another thing.
Let me flip this back to Lagos, because I know that they still have questions. But I interrupted because you were reading a particular part of the law, which you were saying says that INEC can or cannot or can
definitely.
Yeah,
once
but
they receive notice.
It does look here that whatever elections or primaries, whatever primaries the parties are holding, it shall be monitored by the commission. And I know that shall usually spells must.
No, not necessarily. What is important is that the party gave them notice of it. Okay. If they choose not to attend, they are the ones defaulting. It's not the business of the party.
Let's flip this back to Lagos. Gentlemen.
Yes.
Well, yeah, incidentally, we need to go to a quick break, but we'll return and take a look at some other materials and get the gentlemen to respond to them in a moment. Don't go away. Welcome back, Mr. Valentine, Ophir, and Solomon Journey are still with us, talking about the developments in Akwa Ibom State. Well, Mr. Journey had mentioned and cited Section 84 of the Electoral Act, of which Mr. Ophir did say, look, there's a court's judgment that has settled the matter, that INEC cannot reject a candidate if they are submitted to them. But then, Mr. Ophir, you were going to explain further specifically about your understanding of that section 8413, which I also read to you about the powers of INEC with respect to a candidate. So when you say that they've got no powers to reject a candidate, does that section 8413 validate your point or not?
Oh, definitely. Definitely.
But it clearly states there that they've got the powers to reject if they are not validly
read it again. Read
nominated.
it again. And no. It didn't say that.
Okay, let's.
It says that if you don't conduct valid primaries, that you may be excluded.
If you
now,
fail, it says where a
powers?
political party fails to comply with the provisions of this act in the conduct of its primaries, the candidate for election shall not be included in the election for the particular position in issue. So, isn't that clear enough?
And no, if you want to find out who has the powers to decide whether that political party would be included or not, please go to 8414 and read it. Would you like me to read it for you?
From your understanding, tell us what it says.
No, let me read it. Not my understanding. Let's read the law. Not my understanding. Let's read the law.
If you read the law, you will still tell us from... Okay, go ahead.
Notwithstanding the provisions of this act or rules of a political party, an aspirant who complains that any of the provisions of this act and the guidelines of a political party have not been complied with in the selection or nomination of a candidate of a political party for election may apply to the Federal High Court for redress, not apply to the REC of the state for redress. That's all I've been saying since.
So, in this particular case...
If you have any problems, hold on. If you have any problems with the nomination of Mr. Akpabio, apply to the Federal High Court.
Who is to apply? The party or INEC?
Whoever has problems.
No. So, who has problem now?
If you know you have any problem, I don't know. If you know you have any problems with his nomination, please go and apply to the Federal High Court.
What exactly is your point?
His disqualification.
What has INEC done wrong in this case from your perspective?
I'm going to explain in 4 sentences. The first thing is INEC has done nothing wrong because INEC has not disqualified anybody. The second thing is the REC of the state, the Resident Electoral Commissioner of that state, who has no powers to disqualify anybody, went to the press and announced that somebody had been disqualified. And that is what has deceived the nation. The third thing is this, that it's clear that we understand this, that INEC is different from the REC, that INEC is made up of the chairman of INEC and the National Electoral Commissioners, which is collectively they are referred to as INEC. And decisions that this collective body take are the official decisions of INEC. The personal opinion or decisions of the REC are not the decisions of INEC. And we have been mixing this up all along. That the REC of the state granted a press interview and said somebody has been disqualified is not the same as saying that INEC disqualified the person.
All right, let me...
Nobody has been disqualified by INEC.
There's a document published, the APC candidates list, the outcome of valid primaries monitored by state office and sent to INEC headquarters from Akwa Ibom State Office. They published the names of the Senatorial, the House of Representatives, those whose names are there, which appears on the screen, submitted to INEC, which informs whatever decision and actions taken by INEC. This is the one by INEC. Is that right or not?
Now, when you take a look at that list, what you are going to find is a clear infraction of both the law, Electoral Act, and the Constitution. We all know that the party said and announced to everybody that the name they forwarded to INEC was the name of Mr. Babio. Now, when you look at that list, you find out that his name is not on that list. And then you ask yourself, why is his name not on that list? Does the REC have the powers to substitute his name with any name that he likes?
Did the REC substitute his name? That's the list submitted, isn't it? Isn't that the one submitted by the party?
No, that's not the list submitted by the party. No.
Okay. Mr. Johnny?
Party did not submit that list.
All right. But this is the one INEC says they monitored, the ones that complied with the laws. But Mr. Johnny, you
that
heard...
is the one...
Okay, just a minute. Mr. Johnny, what's your impression on it? So is that the one submitted by the party or not? I mean, you're a member of the APC.
All right. The problem we have with this narrative is that people are trying to use our heads, and I want the media to be strong and to look at the facts and details. The governorship nomination of the APC was billed for 26 May 2022. The senatorial nominations that is an issue now was billed for 27th May. And on the senatorial nomination that was billed for 27th May, INEC monitored the nomination, and the name that you saw on the screen, Mr. Udome Kudum, DIG, retired, was the man who emerged as winner of the contest at the Korepene, and INEC was there. They monitored. They saw the result. Let us not be led to believing that INEC does not have a role to play in an election. INEC plays a supervisory role. INEC ensures that rules are followed. It is the discretion of INEC to accept whatever the party sends to them or not to accept. And what INEC has just done is to exercise its powers under Section 84, Sub 18 of the Electoral Act by not accepting what they did not supervise, what they did not see. And that is correct. Now, he tries to tell us that those who are aggrieved, like His Excellency Chief Godswill Akpabio, can go to court. Yes, that's correct. Chief Godswill Akpabio can go to court to prove that INEC is wrong to have rejected his name and to have accepted the name of DIG Udome Kudum in his state. And that would be right. But INEC has served the vulnerable. There are people, because they tell us there in Akwa Ibom State that what money cannot do, more money can do, and that the court can be bulldozed, the court can be truncated, and then they can have their way. That's the thing that is going on in Akwa Ibom State. What you see right now is a man standing between the law and the people who will not have the capacity to bulldoze the Nigerian judicial system and then and then have his way. We appreciate Mike Igini in Akwa Ibom State. We appreciate INEC, what they are doing. You know, we have had this experience in 2011, if we are to have the benefit of time to go back to history. In 2011, we had a victory at the 2011
Mr. Johnny,
general
just
election.
hang on a minute.
We have records that
we're
shows...
running out of time, so just to establish some things, let me go to Mr. Ofia. Look, there's a portal that all politicians, political parties are on, the dates where the elections, primaries are supposed to hold. So tell us, if you say Senator Akpabio participated in the process, what date did his own primaries hold, and who monitored it? Which INEC official monitored?
June 9, monitored by INEC.
June 9, monitored by INEC.
Question,
hang on a minute, just hang on.
Yes. Now,
which INEC official monitored it?
You go and look at their documents from here, from your studios here.
You tell us. You said it was June 9.
Monitored by INEC.
You said it was June 9, so that means you are aware of all the details. So tell us, which INEC official monitored it?
Oh, definitely.
Which official monitored it?
That is what I'm saying. I can't reel off their names off head.
Okay, tell me one name.
I can't stay here and mention names of people.
Give us one name.
I said I can't memorize the names of people I don't know, but I want to say this.
Okay,
I want to
hold on.
this.
Which
you asked him a very
INEC...
simple question. Was that the list submitted by the party?
So, Mr.
That is the
Ofia,
question.
You want to ask your questions and answer your questions. You say INEC monitored. Which official monitored it?
Which official?
Which INEC official monitored?
So we
hold them to account. But you know the process for which INEC sends...
hold the commission to account, not individuals.
But you can't tell us who monitored.
I think I can help my brother.
Not individuals. It is not a personal thing.
I think I can
it's
help
an
my
official
brother.
act of the commission.
I think I can help
you
my brother.
You don't start naming individuals and holding them to account.
All right, let's show you this.
If you allow me, I can help my brother.
You said it was June 9. Just hold on. You'll come in a minute. Hold on. You said it was June 9. But the list that we do have there, where politicians subscribe to and put up, is that INEC also corroborated. The date for that is 27. So how come yours is June 9?
Yes, because the REC decided, what happened was that the REC attended an illegal meeting convened by the faction, by the people who lost in court, and went there and illegally certified whatever they did with that meeting held on the 27th, and then uploaded this. Now, the question the question you asked me was, did the party submit, whether what INEC reflected is the same as the list submitted by the party? And I said no.
Who submitted June 9? Who submitted June...
And then the REC substituted the names.
Ms. Ofia, just hang on a minute.
The party,
who submitted June 27 to that portal?
Nobody. The party did not. The REC came up with that on his own.
I think I need to help him.
All right, Mr.
That's what I have been saying all along.
Just hang on. Mr. Johnny, is that right?
It's wrong. It's wrong in his assessment. Political parties' right to independent National Electoral Commission as to when they are going to conduct their primaries. And for APC, the senatorial election was to be conducted on 27th May. That is shown on that screen. And on that date, the man that emerged as winner of that Congress is D.I.G. Udomekpo. Chief Godswill Akpabio was not billed for that nomination. He was a presidential aspirant. He campaigned and had bought presidential nomination form, which it is on record that he stepped down for His Excellency Ahmed Bola Tinubu, and then afterward just rushed down and nocturnally announced himself as senatorial candidate. There was no INEC monitoring of that fast that they conducted at Electoral. There was no INEC presence. INEC was not there. The party was not informed. And so we can discard that nothing really happened on the 6th of the date he mentioned. The nomination that is known to law that about the Electoral Central District, the Akwa Ibom State Northwest, is the one conducted on the 27th of May, in which D.I.G. Udomekpo emerged as winner.
Okay,
there was no
Mr. Johnny,
in Akwa Ibom
just
State.
Just a quick question on that. Do you know the INEC officials that led the team or that monitored this election you're talking about?
The one that purportedly produced...
No, the one you are talking about, the one of May 27 that you're talking about.
It was supervised by a team dispatched by Barrister Mike Ikini, the rec of Akwa Ibom State. There's no controversy about that.
Okay. Let me ask Mr. Ofia. You said earlier, Mr. Ofia,
Yes,
that INEC may or may not monitor the Congress. And by that, you probably were even saying that the election that you're talking about was not monitored by INEC. And you're now making a U-turn,
No, I
it would
never
seem,
said that.
and saying that it was monitored.
I never said it was not monitored by INEC. I said it was monitored by INEC, but I cannot reel out names of people
Earlier,
here.
you quoted.
That is what I said.
Earlier, you quoted section
and I also
84.1.
told
Just
you.
1 second.
And I also,
earlier, you quoted section 84.1 that INEC may choose to not monitor the Congress.
oh, definitely. If you give them notice to attend and monitor an event, they are an independent body. They may choose not to come.
Okay, so
It's
was
up to them.
the election,
not
the
invalidate
Congress
the
you are
event.
talking about, was it monitored by INEC?
It was monitored by INEC,
Okay.
and I've said that several times.
Do you
and
know?
I've also said that
just a
after
second.
that
Just a
the party
second.
submitted
Mr.
the
Johnny
name
said just
to
a while
INEC.
ago that they know that the team that monitored the election of May 27 was dispatched by Mr. Igini, who is the resident electoral commissioner in Akwa Ibom State. Who dispatched the team?
Exactly.
Who dispatched the team that monitored the election you are talking about on June 9?
Now, you have asked me a question that will expose the fraud going on here. I said the REC has chosen to dispatch teams to go and monitor events being organized by people who are not officers of APC. And I have also told you that the officers of APC were determined by the judgment of the court, which the REC has decided to ignore. And I've also told you that the proper officers of APC organized the proper primaries monitored by INEC and submitted the name of the person who emerged from that primaries to INEC. And I've also told you that after receipt of this name, that this REC substituted this name with his own name. And I've told you to ask him, did the party submit to INEC the name of the person this REC published as the candidate of the party?
Okay, so Mr.
That
Johnny,
is the
briefly
crux of
answer
the matter.
So, Mr. Johnny, could you briefly answer? Did the party submit that?
Now, the fact that you need to understand is that as at the time that the governorship, senatorial, the House of Assembly nominations were conducted, Stephen Turekpo was not the state chairman of the party. Stephen Turekpo became the state chairman of the party when the court order that order status quo was vacated, and a letter was written to INEC recognizing Stephen Turekpo on the 12th of June.
So the party didn't submit that?
Everything about nomination.
So the party did not submit
it.
All right. Okay, gentlemen, just
what the party
me.
submitted.
We need to see how we can wrap up soon. But so, Mr. Ofia, was Senator Akpabio screened for the senatorial position?
Senator, yes, he was.
He was screened?
What he did,
okay, so he bought the form. He bought the form for that position?
He bought both forms. He bought the forms for presidential, he bought the forms for senatorial. Yes,
and he attended the screening on the same day?
And he attended the screening, and not just the screening, but participated in the primaries and
for
won.
both.
And then everybody knew he stepped down when it came to the presidential primaries. Everybody knew that.
Okay.
But went back and participated in the senatorial.
All right, let's get another lawyer in on this, gentlemen, because we need to also wrap up as soon as we can. Mr. Daniel Bola joins us this morning. He's also a member of your party. Mr. Bola, good morning, and thank you for joining us on the program. Well, you may have caught some parts from the point of law, interpretation and understanding of sections 84.12 Electoral. What is the power of INEC? What can they do or cannot do when it comes to monitoring and accepting lists of candidates for primaries? What do you think?
So the context is that before the 2022 Electoral Act, the power to reject the candidate was taken away from INEC. That once a political party submits the name of a candidate, INEC has no right to reject. INEC will just go ahead with that candidate so that any aggrieved party can approach the poll. But by the 2022 Electoral Act amendment, the burden of approaching the court has now been shifted to the party that INEC refused to accept his name. So it is right that if a primaries is conducted by a political party and observed by INEC, INEC has a duty because the idea behind the observance is to ensure that the provisions of the Electoral Act and the guidelines of the party is followed. Now, anybody who does not comply with that, even if the political party submit the name of that person to INEC, INEC is not obligated to accept that name. And the person to approach the court is no longer INEC, it's no longer the party or the winner, quote unquote, but the person who is complaining that the conduct of the primaries did not favor him. So in this case, it is Akpabio that should approach the court, but not the other candidates who, based on the testimony of INEC, passed through the due process and his name was submitted and duly accepted by law.
Mr. Ballard, so many questions flying in my head now, and I'm limited to maybe just one or two. But quickly speak to Section 8414, which Mr. Ofia quoted earlier. Notwithstanding the provisions of this act or rules of a political party, an aspirant who complains that any of the provisions of this act and the guidelines of a party have not been complied with in selection of nomination of a candidate of a political party for election may apply to the Federal High Court. That's what you just addressed now. But, you know, there's something that Mr. Ofia said just now, that a candidate bought the form for presidential election and senatorial election. Is that something the law welcomes, or is it something that the law is silent on?
Now, because there is no express provision in the Electoral Act that prohibits that, so INEC cannot hold it against the political party, for example. But even the course of contesting for the post that he has bought the form for, he violates any of the provisions of the Electoral Act in the conduct of his electioneering process or the primaries, then INEC is not obligated to accept the name. So assuming you participated in the presidential, you participated in the senatorial, but based on the provisions of the Electoral Act, you fail to comply with the procedure for senatorial, but you have complied with the presidential, you cannot come to INEC and expect that INEC will accept your name. Even if, now take note of this, even if the political party submit the name of that candidate that did not comply with the provisions of the Electoral Act, INEC is not obligated to accept that name, which is what you have seen there. And these two sections are to be read in conjunction, no longer in isolation. In the past, you could interpret it in isolation, but now it has to be in conjunction. Compliance, number one, based on the observance of INEC, and number two, the person whose name was rejected is the person that will approach the court to seek interpretation.
Much indeed, Mr. Daniel Bala, legal practitioner.
Thank you.
Makwa?
Indeed, we still have our guests here, and I'm sure they have been listening diligently. I just want to ask you quickly, that section 8413.
Yes.
Who has the power? I'm very curious. Who has the power to determine when the process has not been followed? Who has the power to determine that?
Two provisions of that law clearly stipulated who has the powers to pronounce on the qualification or disqualification of a candidate. You may look at 29.3 first. Then you look at 8414. And then what is peculiar about 29.3 is that it says that once INEC receives the names and the particulars of the candidates submitted by the party, they are bound to publish it, not to alter that list, as they have done in this instance.
Let me clarify this. Where a political party fails to comply with the provisions of this act in the conduct of its primaries, its candidates for election shall not be included in the election for the particular position in issue. Who has that power?
The court, the Federal High Court.
Federal
High Court. Look at the name, named in 14.
No. Who has the power to determine that a political party has failed to comply with the provisions of the Act?
Only the Federal High Court. Only.
That is not correct.
Only the Federal High Court.
That is not correct.
If we, I don't know, you disagree with him. Why?
Of course, the law is very clear there. We don't need to, law is an art. All of us can read it. The law is here, the Electoral Act 2022. And it says the INEC as an institution will filter what it accepts, so that the law will be followed.
Where does it say that? In the...
I had quoted section 8413, which we highlighted. And it uses the word shall. Shall is compulsorily.
Section 8413 is what I just read. But the question, what I'm saying is that it seems to be silent on who. It would seem that what has happened in Akwa Ibom State is that the REC in the state has determined that this is what the Electoral Act says, and that the process, as far as he knows, and as far as the commission represented by him monitored in Akwa Ibom State, certain provisions were not complied with. And as far as he knows, names cannot just emanate and then he accepts them. That is not how it is. That's simply what is stipulated in the Electoral Act.
There is no confusion as to...
You seem to disagree with that, saying that it is the High Court which has the powers to determine...
The question is it the High Court? The question is it the High Court that conducts elections?
Just a moment.
Just a moment. INEC?
Let him respond to that.
Let me clarify once again and say this. This is not my personal opinion. This is the opinion of the Supreme Court while interpreting this same provision of the law. And the Supreme Court said, and I'm going to quote them verbatim, it said, the Independent National Electoral Commission lacks the power to disqualify any candidate on its own. The power of disqualification of any candidate from contesting an election after his name has been forwarded to the commission belongs exclusively to the Federal High Court. That is the Supreme Court of Nigeria. So it is not my personal opinion.
Just a moment. This was the Supreme Court before the new Electoral Act, isn't that?
Interpreting not before.
2010 Electoral Act.
Interpreting the same provisions.
No, that's not correct.
That same provision.
That's not correct. The Supreme Court was deciding on the 2010 amended Electoral Act as amended.
This provision, was it included?
Yes.
Was it a part of the 2010 Electoral Act?
It wasn't. It wasn't.
I'm sure that lawyers are out there and they're watching it. And members of the National Assembly are also watching this.
It was a part of it. It's not new.
The 2022 Electoral Act, as we have it here, has not been subjected to any judicial review yet. It has just been signed to law in March by President Muhammadu Buhari. We are just testing it now. Now, no court decision, no decided case whatsoever. What he is quoting is a decided case on 2010 Electoral Act. As far as we are concerned, this law has not gone to court yet. It is only, for instance, Chief Constable Agbabe has started the process. We will now like to see what the Supreme Court will say about INEC's power as stated in this constitution.
Without prejudice to what you've said, the Electoral Act 2022, much as yes, it is a brand new law because, I mean, the amendments were so many that they had to just rename it 2022. I'm curious because it would seem that it's largely an improvement or supposed to be an improvement on what we had in 2010. Isn't that
correct? That's correct.
So if that is the case, it means that not all the provisions are entirely new. Isn't that correct?
Now laws are made to correct problems.
I understand that. What I'm saying, what I'm asking you is whether this particular provision is a new insertion or it has been in the Electoral Act before now.
You remember that political parties had the powers.
It's a simple yes or no, totally out of time.
No, it's not something we can say yes or no so that we don't confuse ourselves. Before now, political parties had the powers. They can just write names and submit. They can just substitute anyhow. If this was to be 2010, Udome Budom would have been out of the game and we wouldn't be here talking. It is that the law now mandates INEC to supervise, monitor, and scrutinize who goes in to stand election. And that is why INEC is insisting that we saw and monitor D.I. Udome Budom, and that is the name that they are to submit. And that's the law.
I've been told that we need to go right now. I see something here. 14C grants political parties the right to challenge the actions, decisions, or activities of the Independent National Electoral Commission, disqualifying its candidate from participating in an election. So it would seem that some people are saying that, under the Constitution and the new Electoral Act, INEC has powers to reject candidates that did not emerge from the primary. I think that will certainly be something perhaps,
their opinion cannot equate to that of the Supreme Court.
Will be tested will be tested moving forward. But gentlemen, we have to thank you both for coming on this morning. We've had a pretty lengthy conversation, and I hope that it has not left our viewers a little more confused, but at least has shed more light on what the situation is in Akwa Ibom. Valentine Ofia is a legal practitioner, and Mr. Solomon Johnny is a former publicity secretary of the APC in Akwa Ibom State. Gentlemen, thank you so much for coming on Sunrise Edition.
Thank you.
We'll take a break at this time. We'll be back shortly to discuss another matter. Please stay with us.
The party set up a committee which it was initiated by the candidate himself and said that, look, we should help him to advise him on who will be the vice president of the party. 17 of us, we met, and 14 members of that committee, from stakeholders of the party, from National Working Committee, from Governors Forum, from former Governors Forum, from former Ministers Forum, all of us came together. 14 out of 17 said that for the party to move forward, it should be Wike. But unfortunately, for some of us, the vice presidency was zoned to someone else, based on the decision of the candidate himself. My concern is that the overtures have not gone out enough to see how we can sort these things out. Like I said earlier, all that was needed, even before the pronouncement, after we did our recommendation, Wike would have been reached up to. He's a human being.
Welcome back. Fabi Oladimeji joins us next. He is the Director, Support Group and Events Technical Committee, Atiku for President 2023. Good morning and thank you for joining us virtually today on the program. Well, it appears uneasy lies ahead that wears the crown. Your principal is at the moment, well, facing a lot of hurdles. There seems to be disquiet within the political party. Many, at least it appears as such, don't seem to be pulling in the same direction with him. How is he handling all this?
Well, good morning, Chamberlain. Good morning, Nigerians, and thanks for the opportunity to be here this morning. First and foremost, I'd like to say that there's no crisis. And I say this because in politics and in every election cycle, a lot of things like this come up. And what you now notice is that as time passes by, you see almost of these things, freezing out, and then everybody will come to the table, and then we'll go into the election. It's normal, it's new. When you have an election, there must be a winner, there must be a loser, and it takes time, for that healing to really come up. I strongly believe that this is going to, come up. And for my principal that you ask, His Excellency is a veteran. Is one of the grandmasters of Nigerian politics, if not African politics. His pedigree when it comes to politics, and he understands most of these dynamics. He has no problem with most of the things that are happening. Like I said, there's no crisis. See, most of the people that are talking are justified because it's all politics. That's number one. Number two, most of the concerns they raise are genuine. And His Excellency Atiku Abubakar, leader of the party today, understands most of these things. He understands the value of going into an election united. He understands the value of inclusion. So, and you can see in his statement, and that has doused so many things to let Nigerians know that there's no cause for alarm. Whether Governor or Tom or any other person that have raised issues, there are genuine concerns, and we must listen to them. And that is the leadership Atiku has brought to bear. That is the engagement he understands that needs to be done. So there's no crisis. So PDP is a family, and we'll have internal mechanism with which we address most of these things. If anybody tells you that there are internal wranglings, just leave it. It will soon fizzle out.
So how do we explain where, as the governor said, if 14 people said, he set up the committee himself and then brought eminent people to help advise and choose who will be the vice presidential candidate. And majority of them, you heard the governor there say 14, then 3 why did he decide to go with 3 as opposed to 14? So why did he set up the committee in the first place?
Okay, let me make this clarification. His Excellency did not set up the committee, it's the party. See, the moment the candidate of the party emerges, the party takes over. But before this committee that was set up by the party, there were other consultations with the other organs of the party. These 17 wise men, they're just a fragment of the consultation that His Excellency has to do. You know, he's a veteran in all of these things. He knows how this thing works. He consulted with the BOT, with Ministers Forum, with Governors Forum, and all of these things, there are feedback. And before that, he has set up his own 7-man or 8-man committee that drew up the list for criteria of picking a VP. Those ones who equally submitted a report. So it's only this report of the 17 wise men by the party that is being talked about. But now, Chamberlain, what I want to say is that the party has moved beyond that. We now have a vice presidential candidate, a man with fantastic profile and fantastic record of performance and achievement in the person of Ifeanyi Okowa, the governor of Delta State. We've moved beyond that, and the party is really working internally, strategically, to make sure that we face this election as a united family. So you can't take it away from those who have 1 or 2 things, differences to say. I mean,
okay, but if you say the party has moved on, in the first place, if he was not happy with the committee that was set up, being a veteran, why didn't he just tell the party, look, I'm not in tune with this? Why did you then allow them go the whole hog only to thump it aside?
Timberlane, he couldn't have done that. And let me tell you, even if everybody in that committee had voted for one person, like the governor of Benue claimed, I wasn't there, but I was at the session. And
in other words, the party is not supreme, he is supreme. Is that what that means?
No, that's not it. As the candidate, he reserves the right. It's been done all over the world to pick who is comfortable to work with. And that's what Atiku has done. He reserved the right before he has it. So even if everybody in that committee has said it should be this candidate, he has the right to say, no, from my own criteria. And I just told you, he consulted other critical organs of the party. I just mentioned them. I just lined them up for you. He consulted all of them, and all of them has a view. They have a say in all of this.
So
and that's why I said,
from what the people can clearly see, you say he consulted with other critical members or organ of the party, on the one hand. And then on the other hand, these other critical members of the party voted in this way. And the other organ he consulted voted the other way or advised the other way. So that clearly shows you 2 distinct positions in the same party.
It's not a distinct position. I don't want you to run away from the fact that he reserves the right to pick whoever he wants to. That is the major priority. He has the right to say party. And look at this. Every committee, every consultation he made, including this committee that we talked about, recommended 3 people. And he chose 1 out of these 3 people. It does not mean that he doesn't respect the opinion of the committee that we're talking about. And let me quickly, I wanted to clear something before you came in. I was at the certificate presentation, to the candidate, and the national chairman of the party came up. You can play back. He said there was no election. So, but we don't want to go into all of these things. That against the public, the news in the public, there was no election. It was a consensus build. It was a consensus. So if the consensus provided someone, all right, and other committees and consultants provided somebody else, it is left for Atiku to decide who he wants to work with. And he has done that. So that's why I said, beyond all this, the party has moved on. It's the family affair, number 1. Number 2, we have internal mechanism to resolve our crisis. And Atiku is a veteran who understands this game very well. He has no problem with Governor Wike. He has no problem with Otom. The concerns raised by these guys are so genuine, and Atiku that I know will attend to it, because what is important in all of this is the future of this country. It's not about Atiku. It's not about Wike. It's not about any other person. It's not about me. It's about the future of this country, and that is the goal. So, and that is where Atiku is focusing. So the party must focus at winning this election. APC has given us bad leadership. They have failed so abysmally, but still they want to tenaciously hold on to power. PDP must realize all these things and come together and work together. And I appreciate the fact that if His Excellency, his team, and the party we quickly move, speak to all these are governors. They are the assets of the party. You can't take it away from Governor Wike.
Okay.
Governor Wike is an asset to the party, just like Seyi Makinde and all of them. So we need all of them on board to be able to send this APC out and deliver Nigeria for the Nigerian people.
Well, you know, mentioning these other critical stakeholders in the party only raises one more question, which is also in public domain, and everyone is wondering how all of that is feeding into what you're talking about. The exact position you just held now that the PDP needs to come together is the same thing Governor Okoa said, that everyone needs to come together. That suggests that there is something critically wrong somewhere, because that committee set up by the PDP for the next elections in Osun State, 11 governors were not there. And pulling things together, it would seem the general opinion would be perhaps some critical stakeholders in the party are clearly unhappy with a lot of things that is happening, and consequently looking at how things have happened, how things have evolved, how some kinds of injustices have been meted out to one person or the other, causing this major rift. Moving forward, how do you see this issue being resolved? You have said that the PDP is a family. Anyone would say that. We've heard that before. But with the election so close, the Osun election so close, and this kinds of divisions so rife, among pockets of people who are very prominent and critical in your party, how do you see the party moving forward?
Let me tell you, my brother, the fact that most of the governors, like we said, were not at the meeting does not mean they are not with the party on this. And I wanted to get that clear.
11 governors. Not just 2 or 3.
These are the people that have state matters. Let me tell you something. They have state matters to attend to. Have you ever seen any governor come out and say, this is because I'm angry with the party I didn't attend? Give me one governor that has come out to say that. One governor that has said, I didn't attend because I'm angry with the party. You will never, don't let us miss it.
Mr. Ladimeji, we know these things.
No, it's not
true.
We
are young enough to know that. It's not, silence doesn't always mean consent.
No. See, let me tell you, sometimes, things are not the same if people are from the outside and looking at it in the party. Those of us in the party, we know how this thing works. Most of these governors you are talking about have contributed support to the election in Osun State. So what are we talking about? So how many of them have come out and say, it's because I'm angry that I'm not in this? No, a lot of them have state matters. Some of them are not in the country. Okay, we saw a picture, flying around in the last 3-4 days, where Governor Wike, Governor Ipazu, Governor Seyi Makinde, they're outside the country. How do you expect them to attend? These guys have worked so hard. They've gone around the country. They're tired and need to rest. Why would anybody say it's because they're angry with the party? It does not mean they're not with the party on the party's decision. And besides, if there's any issue, we will resolve it. The party is large enough, is big enough to resolve his own problem. So I want to disagree with you, and I don't want Nigerians to believe that there's no crack. Even if there is a crack, it will be mended, it will be resolved. That is PDP for you.
So what do you then say about the open comments, the tweets of former governor of Ekiti and several such comments?
See, Governor Fawashi, most times I usually do not like to, comment on him. If I must give you my personal opinion on Governor Fawashi, I will say that it's been a huge disappointment. This is a personal opinion. A huge disappointment, because a leader should be seen to be more responsible. And if you want to be a leader, you must be able to lead your people to where they do not want to go. As far as I know, the party has done a lot for Governor Fawashi. I was there at the party office in 2003 as the head of accounts. I knew how he came to the party. I knew what this party has done to him. He should not be seen to be the one fanning the embers of discord in this party, regardless of how he feels about anything. He's knowledgeable enough, about the political, activities in this country to know what to say at what time. Even if he has another interest, he would rather come out and say, I'm no more in PDP, instead of fanning all these embers. And
he shouldn't have said that the party is not sticking to their own constitution?
So, why can he say that? The party is working on the constitution. The party has a rotation clause in this contract, and the party is working in that direction. So I don't know where that is coming from. So for me, as far as I know, if you are no more comfortable with where you are, be bold enough to say I'm no more there. A lot of news, a lot of information have been going out about Governor Fawaji, that is this, is that, is that, and you see him tilting towards to that
but
side.
I thought you said it's a democracy. Your party, they got free speech. Anybody is allowed to express their opinion.
We have never stopped him from saying it. But as a party, as a leader that he is, he should be more responsible.
So the party lost Ekiti. They were not even second. They were third. And now Osun is on the way. If the party loses Osun, isn't that the beginning of the end for the party?
The party is not going to lose Osun State. I can tell you that the party is not going to lose Osun State. See all this, forget all this thing that you are saying. The party is working well in Osun. Ekiti was unfortunate, and then a lot of that losses were accredited to Governor Fawashi's mishandling of the matter. But that has passed. We can't reverse that anymore. But for Osun State, we are going there with a lot of strength and vigor, and by the grace of God, we are going to win Osun State.
So we should expect those 11 governors who were not present to be flanked by your principal as a flag off for that campaign?
Hopefully, I expect them. Those of them that are around will certainly be there. It's for the party. It's not about an individual. However badly you feel about a situation, the bigger goal, the overall objective must overshadow your own personal interest. And I think that is what is happening. For me, Governor Wike, let me tell you something. Governor Wike, hate him or like him, is an access to this party. And the party will do everything humanly possible to make sure that he stays within the party. The party has done a lot for him. Equally, he has invested in the party. The party has given him chance as party chairman to minister, to chief of staff, to minister, to governor. So where does he want to go? That play anywhere outside PDP is not in his best interest, and it's not in the best interest of this country. So we have no problem with that.
Okay, Fabi Oladimeji, Director, Support Group and Event Technical Committee at Atiku for President 2023. Thank you for your time today.
Thank you very much.
Okay, so don't forget, the other day, the Labour Party presidential candidate did pay a visit to the Secretariat of Labour. You know, both centres are the mainstay of Labour Party, the Trade Union Congress and Nigeria Labour Congress. So one just wonders, wow, what kind of support will they be giving him? Can they deliver that state? People always ask the question about quote-unquote structure. So what is this structure? Is it amorphous? If you have a lot of young people who say, we will volunteer, is that tantamount to a structure? And some say, look, well, this, even if it were tantamount to a structure, it's not been tested in an election. So if it's not been tested, to what extent can you rely on that, even if you have to negotiate with it? So new grounds to cover. This is also new. The first time you see this length of campaign, the first time you see key presidential candidates from 3 different regions, several firsts. How about we try out with the NLC's Vice President, Mr. Asuguni, who joins us virtually as well. Good morning, and thank you for joining us on the program today. So tell us, what is the thinking of Labour, NLC, and TUC about the candidature of Mr. Peter Obi?
Good morning, Chamberlain. I am Comrade Amechi Asoguni, Deputy President, Nigeria Labour Congress. I would consider that the choice of P2B to have actually joined Labour Party to pursue his career, it has been tested and confirmed that his personality meets our criteria. And by the special grace of God, he was unanimously adopted by National Executive Council meeting yesterday, and the arrangement has been concluded to mobilize in order to ensure victory.
You heard a lot said about quote-unquote the structure. So what is the structure that Labour is going to provide? Do you have it?
The structure to deliver a candidate can only be most established by Congress. Nigeria Labour Congress has a structure, not in 36 states, but in the entire local government. And we're going to, we're going to invoke our own standard in establishing structure. Congress already have a structure, and we are lifting our structure in favor of his candidature. So Labour Party is not building structure. They are rather utilizing the existing structure of organized labor in Nigeria in order to ensure that for the first time, Nigerians should take back this country for better governance.
So Labour will provide party agents in every polling unit, in every local government to match up with the ruling party and the main opposition party to deliver Mr. P2B. Is that what you're saying?
Yes, the arrangement for me, as far as I'm concerned, though strategies are ongoing, but Labour have approved that leadership should proceed to organize, mobilize, and ensure victory to the extent that we are going to make ourselves available at the polling unit. They call them polling unit armies, and they are going to supervise the marshals to ensure that due diligence is performed and concluded at the polling unit. Results are cited, and videos are taken, and other strategies put in place in order that none of this will be manipulated along the way.
Is that
and
to
we are
assume,
also calling on INEC
just
to ensure that from the...
Well, Mr. Asugini, is that to assume that every member of the Nigeria Labour Congress and Trade Union Congress is a member of the Labour Party?
In fact, we deliberated on that yesterday to the extent that it is no longer about party, but about persons. So we realize and resolve as Labour that people should not say, I used to be PDP or APC or ABGA, or any party whatsoever. Today, Labour Party is an alternative for Nigeria, and every Labour leader and member should make himself or herself available in ensuring victory, because it has gone beyond party. Parties have not delivered. Persons are those that have pedigree, and the antecedents should speak louder than the party.
So comrade,
it goes beyond Labour Party. It's about the persons involved.
If that was the case, why didn't Comrade Adam Bashama, the former president of NLC, use the Labour platform to contest his election and win?
That is no, it's the same thing. The question now is Adams as a Labour person. We look at him and not the party. That confirms what I'm saying, that it goes beyond party platform. Yeah. It's about the person. If Obi as a person had joined APP or any party whatsoever, Labour would have lifted his support for him as well. Because what we are doing now, because he has come to Labour Party, we must promote that party. We must ensure that the party is a platform for everybody. Yeah, it goes beyond party.
If I could rephrase that, if Labour Party was that strong and had all the structure which you allude to, why did a former president of the NLC have to leave Labour and go to other political parties to achieve his objective?
He made his advantage in APC then. He made his advantage in another party. The same structure of NLC was used in his favor. The same structure of NLC was used in his favor. So our structure is mobile, and we can transfer it to whomever we please that can deliver Nigeria. So it goes beyond party.
Are people now going to say, well, if Labour is going to throw their weight behind the candidature of Mr. P2B, if Labour says they're going to go on protest, then it's going to be partisan because they're supporting P2B, and so they won't take you seriously?
Never. That has been distinguished to the extent that if and by the time Labour emerges leadership of Nigeria, NLC will remain objective. NLC have its constitution and guideline. Nigeria also have their constitution. Don't forget, once a president emerges, he forms his own executive ESCO. And that is to say, he will be seen at that time as government. And it will be government versus Labour. So we must continue to engage. As a matter of fact, deviation on any part will be resisted, because that is the people's choice. And he has no other obligation than to meet even the workers' desire.
Okay, even though you say your protest is going to go ahead on one day, we'll look out for that and see. Is that still on?
Yes, they plan to proceed on one-day protest, a nationwide protest, in order to show more or less a sign of warning to federal government. Their inability to pay attention to the education sector is worrisome, and we must do everything possible to achieve it.
Thank you very much indeed, Comrade Amechi Asuguni, Deputy President of NLC. Well, that is the show today. Thank you all for watching. We'll see you next week. I'm Chamberlain Uso.
I'm Ayamakinde. Have a wonderful weekend and keep safe.
I'll see you later this evening. Thank you for watching this morning. I'm Maukbe Ogun Yusuf.